Thank you for returning to Mastering Counseling as we get to interview another awesome person today. We have Avalaura Gaither. Welcome to the show today, Avalaura.
Thank you so much for having me, Becky.
Can't wait to hear about the history of all of your work. Avalaura has experience in the past as a social worker and then has evolved in her work into doing a lot of speaking. She is now the proud owner of a company called Soulful Self-Care Solutions. And will share with us about that, and definitely takes a holistic approach to helping her clients. And thank you just for being here. And why don't let's kind of start at the most current right now. Tell us about
Sure.
Soulful Self-Care. And first of all, I already told her I love alliteration, so thank you for the three S's. So tell us where you got that name and what is happening with that company.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that's the current, but it's also the past as well. Right. So the name comes from my past and, my experience. And, as you know, right now, self-care in particular is probably one of the hot topics: self-care, burnout, work-life integration, things that I talk about most to, various companies and, different conferences and things like that. And so I really wanted to focus the company around that because that really is the primary work that I've been doing now for the last, I would say, probably 5 or 6 years, since it's been such a heavy focus, particularly like during COVID and after COVID.
All right, awesome. I love how you kind of brought the past and currently together. I like that.
Yeah.
What way, maybe longer ago, what brought your interest into social work in the first place, or even into the field of mental health?
Yeah, it's one of those things that at 18, right, you go to college and you have
Mhm.
to pick a major, right? You have to
Yeah.
decide what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
Like, who came up with these rules? How are you supposed to know at 18 years old what you want to do? But I chose psychology. I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I majored in psychology. And my mother had majored in psychology, even though she's a lawyer. And really, it was because it was something that I was always good at.
Mm.
I'm the oldest of three children. I was the one always advising, or, some might think it was being bossy, but for me, I was helping them because I thought I knew better.
Mhm.
But people actually took my advice and listened. So I thought that it was something that I could do. And so my goal was to go into psychology. At that point, I thought I was going to get a PhD in psychology and do that whole thing. And that did not work out, thank God, because I really did not need to go down a PhD track. And so I decided, after talking to a mentor, to go into social work. He was like, you can really do the same thing that you wanted to do with a PhD with social work, and you don't want to teach anyway. So, why are you going down that path? So that's what I did. So I chose social work, got into social work, and then I realized I was like, I don't think this is going to work for me. Because one of the things I realized was how limited the system is in terms of how it's set up and how you can help people.
Mhm.
And what I understand is that we're human beings, right?
Mhm.
And that we are not one size fits all, right? Everything doesn't work for everybody. And it really does take a holistic approach. I knew, from my own journey, what I needed for my own healing. And so I also recognize we don't talk about spirituality, we don't talk about energy, we don't talk about all of these things. And so it's really not going to work for me. And I just didn't feel like the system was really set up to help people heal. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to take this background, I'm going to take the social work and the psychology, and I'm really going to blend it with the holistic because people really need more in order to heal.
Mhm. All right, thank you for that. I'm glad. We often have people do things that they find out they don't like, and then it pushes them into something else. So good to hear.
I just went
So,
deeper.
yeah, there you go. That's another way of looking at it too. Well, let's talk about some of those deeper modalities that you like to work in, and what separates you from a lot of other therapists or counselors. And you are a life coach, so even
Correct.
maybe what's a different avenue for that as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting because all of these names, right? Like they're kind of misnomers, right? Because it really is the individual person, right? And especially when we come into coaching, a lot of people have issues with coaching because they say it's not regulated. You really don't know what you're getting. What does that mean to be a life coach? And so for me, one of the things that definitely sets me apart is that I actually do have a mental health background. I've worked in the mental health profession. I have my master's degree. I have been licensed. And so it's not some, kind of woo woo thing in the sky that I just decided, oh, I improved my life so I can help other people too.
Mhm.
Although that really is a part of it, but using my own life experience, using my own education, but also using my intuition as well. And I think that that's something that we don't talk about enough, particularly as women, because we do have intuition. It is powerful. And when you're not using that in your profession, in your life, in your business, you're actually suppressing something that will set you apart from everybody else. Will that does help you to be more powerful, that does help you to be more successful, helps you to make more money. But most of us don't really know how to tap into that, or we don't know how to use it. We suppress it, we deny it. It's like, I don't know what that is, or oh, I don't see evidence of that, so that's not really important. It must, there must not be a thing since I don't have evidence of it, or nobody else can confirm it, right, or validate it. And so I think those things really, over the past 20 years now that I've been in this field, have really set me apart. It's that I'm using all of these different facets and combining them together.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. And as you were talking about intuition, because we haven't talked about that on here as much in a while, can you give us maybe one or two examples of a session or a scenario, obviously without giving away the person, where you were able to tap into that intuition and have it be helpful for your client?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times that this has happened, so it's hard to pick out like one thing.
Yeah.
But usually what happens is, I think like most people, right? You're doing a deep dive in the beginning with your client. For in therapists, they usually call it like an intake
Mhm.
process or something like that. And I have my own way of doing that. But usually what happens is when I'm listening, I'm hearing what's going on beneath the surface. And of
Mhm.
course, there's training in that, right? Like these are things that we're trained to do. But there's also like this little voice or this little nudge, like, ask about this or
Mhm.
what's going on there. And so
Mhm.
it just allows me to get deeper quickly with my clients, because I'm listening to my intuition. I have access to that, and I can hear the things that they're not really saying that are really the drivers of what's going on in their life and why they are where they are, and having some of the problems that they are. Because the reality is that you could spend a lifetime talking to people and still not know everything. You see
Mhm.
it all the time. You see the shows or commercials and things like that where people are lying to their therapist, right? Or they're not completely telling the truth. Like I just finished watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Prime, and it was actually really good, the series, not the movie. And, there's some episodes in there where they're going to couples counseling and they're completely lying to the therapist.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to have that voice when people aren't, they may not be lying, but they're not also telling the truth. And sometimes it's because they don't know it, or sometimes they really just don't want to admit it or speak it out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. Love those little cultural connections. And it is always fun to see this field in shows and movies and the way that it's portrayed for sure. Would you talk to us a little bit about what types of clients you have coming to you? I'm sure through the years you've had all types, but do you find yourself helping people mainly through like anxieties and depression? Is it more of like someone jumping into new career and they need that push? What kinds of clients are you seeing most in the last year or two?
Yeah, so, my clients they're a pretty cool way. They're literally like my mirror in some ways. And so that's why I love it, because, I needed somebody like me when I was going through my life transitions. And so that's what I see a lot with my clients. They're very well educated. So, masters, PhDs, JDs. I worked with a lot of lawyers, very, high powered, overachieving. They have to do everything right,
Mhm.
perfectionists. They've done very well in their careers. They've done very well in a lot of aspects of their life. And so when they get to that mountaintop, and it's not what they thought it was going to be. It's like, I worked so hard to get here. I'm finally here, and this is not it. I'm not
Mhm.
happy. I'm not fulfilled. And, I feel like I've been sold a bill of goods. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be better than this. And, what I see a lot of times is that motivation, that push to succeed, a lot of times comes out of their trauma, but it also comes out of people in their lives who told them this is what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Go to school, get your education, get this job here, get married, have children, the white picket fence. And what they realize is that that's not their dream.
Mm.
That was somebody else's dream. And now that they've reached it, they realize there's other things that they want to do, but they're not necessarily sure what that is.
Mm.
And so sometimes that comes out in a marriage, feeling like, what, I've been married 14 years, 15 years, 20 years, but we got married young, and now this relationship is not fulfilling to this new version of who I am or who I'm becoming. Or yes, it looks like career. I'm not happy in my career. This is a toxic work environment. I want to start my own business, or I want to do something that's more fulfilling for me, something that I feel like I'm leaving a legacy or I'm really making an impact and not just money. Sometimes it's with themselves personally. Like, what is my purpose? Like, I'm over here, I've made this money, I have this outward success, but I don't feel like I'm tapping into my purpose or doing anything that's really meaningful in my life. So
Mm.
it kind of comes out in various ways. But ultimately, what it is that they've achieved some level of success. They've really worked hard to get there, but now they recognize that they're not fulfilled there, and there's something else that's calling them, and is trying to figure out what that is.
Thank you. That was a great summary of all the types of people and the phases that might be in. And it's always awesome when you can help people in the way that other people helps you for sure. So glad that
Absolutely.
you're doing that. Let's explore a little bit about the behind the scenes part of soulful self care. And are you the sole person working in it? Do you have admin people? Are you hiring others? What does it look like beyond you and how you operate day to day?
Yeah, so it is primarily me, but I do have a team. So marketing is extremely important. If you don't have a marketer, I don't know what you're doing in your business. So I have a very good brander and marketer. I also have assistants, a lot of social media, also some of the behind the scenes things that you're talking about. Looking at maybe hiring somebody to assist with speaking engagements and things like that.
Mm.
So I sort of hire as needed. It's really more per project as opposed to just having staff there.
Okay. Okay. So it's kind of changing all the time based on the needs that you have. Okay. So you are doing speaking to groups. What type of groups are calling you, and I would love to know why you would need to hire someone for that. Is it like the scheduling and all of that, or what does that person look like?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of speaking for various corporations, big and small, virtual and in person. Although it's interesting, we're seeing a lot of people kind of going back to virtual right now because their employees are all over the world,
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of people working from home, and so yeah, so a lot of the speaking is actually virtual, but a lot of in person as well. I've spoken at various conferences. It could be a business conference and, hey, I want you to talk about work-life integration or, preventing burnout and things like that. Mental health conferences. I have a speaking engagement coming up next month at a mental health conference.
Mm.
So a lot of conferences, a lot of expos,
Okay.
again, around self-care, self-love and things like that. A lot of expos, a lot of women's events, brunches. I actually have my own brunch that I'm actually having in a couple months. Girl, get your effing life, and it's about self-love and self-care and sisterhood. So a lot of various types of places, which I love. So
Hmm.
it keeps me busy. It also is a different experiences, and so it could be very corporate to a church over here, but really it all the same topics because we all want to know the same things. And in terms of hiring a person for that, a lot of people do find me, but one of the things that I realized, and this was for me, is that I wasn't looking for speaking engagements. I was simply depending on the people who were finding me. And
Okay.
so potentially hiring somebody that can go out and find those other speaking engagements that may not have naturally just come to me.
Okay. Yeah, that helps clarify for sure. All right. Well, that's awesome that you're doing all the sharing and a lot of the same points in all different areas. So,
I
and
mean, we all need stress relief, right? We all
yeah.
need work-life integration, no matter what type of work that we're doing. We all need to know how to focus on our boundaries so we're humans, right? And so no matter where we are in life, we're all dealing with the same things.
Mm-hmm. Um, and I was wondering, in when you're working with individual clients, are you completely virtual or do you do in person or a little bit of both?
I am completely virtual. I
Okay.
do have some VIP clients that, for them, I'll see them in person. They may fly me out or we'll meet here in the DC area or something like that. But
Okay.
otherwise, yes, I'm completely virtual.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just amazing. So many people are doing that. And when you speak, do just personal preference, when you do a speaking engagement, do you prefer online or do you like being on the stage in front of a huge group?
Yeah, I mean, it's like both have their pluses and negatives, right?
Yeah.
Like what I love about virtual is the flexibility. If you're speaking virtually, I can speak that day and I can take off the rest of the day because I do believe, self-care, right? You need to take care of yourself, but I can do other things
Mhm.
because I'm still home, I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry so much about my outfit, right? Because you're only seeing top up. I just gotta make sure this
Absolutely.
looks good. Okay. Down
Right?
here, I could be in my yoga pants, pajama pants. I could be very comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And so those type of things. But it's sometimes harder to get engagement. You have to be really good at what you do, to make sure that you're getting engagement virtually. Unfortunately, I am, but it does take a little bit more work to do that. Whereas in person, it's the whole thing. It's more time consuming, travel, you got to worry about the whole outfit, you got to, do all of those things. You're having to take more time off from your day to day,
Mhm.
and because you have, the travel time and things like that. But the energy in the room is special.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's easier to make that connection and to make that impact because you're physically there.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just curious about that. So thank you for sharing those little ins and outs. Some people may that are listening may go into that realm and it's good to know the little things that pair with each. So one thing I wanted to explore is that you do some hypnotherapy in your work. Can you talk about how that looks, especially if it is virtual? And yeah, because honestly, I don't think I've explored virtual hypnosis practices. So,
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's really all the same. Because when during hypnotherapy, you're seated, you're comfortable, you're hearing the sound of my voice.
hmm
We can do all of that virtually.
hmm
So the only difference is when it's in person, I'm controlling the environment.
mm
Whereas when it's virtual, you have to have more control over the environment, but I'm telling you kind of what's important, and
okay,
you don't want to be there and you have the kids running around and the dog
right.
like that's not necessarily gonna work, right? So it's those type of things that you have to manage, but otherwise it really is the same.
Okay. All right, good to know. Yeah, and the environment is very much. Have you ever tried to do it and people haven't controlled their environment well, and then do you just stop it in the middle?
I'm really good at pivoting. So
Okay.
I'll make it work. We don't
Yeah.
stop. We just
Yeah.
we make
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's maybe just talk about some advice for people who may be newer to running any type of practice or anything on their own. Are there any pitfalls along the way that you wish you'd avoided? I mean, we know we all learn from them, but what would be some good things for people newer to this field to know?
Yeah, I think that it's really so a couple things. One, burnout is real. That's certainly what happened at my first few jobs, and one of the reasons that I was like, "Nope, I can't do this anymore. I have to get out." And it's interesting because we didn't even talk about burnout then.
Mm.
So I didn't even know that that was what I was experiencing until years later, but it was really burnout. So burnout is absolutely real. That is something that you really want to plan for, that you want to guard yourself against, that you want to start implementing self-care practices, from the beginning and build those habits. Because if you're seeing clients, it is bound to happen. It's just a natural part of the profession. The other thing is if you decide that you want to go into private practice, which, a lot of mental health professionals are now, because they're seeing, how little they're making at agencies versus now starting their own practices, how they get to keep the money, but then you have to go through, insurance and, doing all of these things. And I've never taken insurance. As a life coach, we actually don't. But that was something that I made a decision very early on, that I didn't want to take insurance, because I wanted to be able to decide how I could help my client. I didn't want to have something like insurance tell me you can or cannot do these things. And so if you decide to go, private pay, you have to know how to run a business. You have to know how to market yourself. We are not taught that in school. We are taught, diagnosis, right? We are taught how to work with our clients. We are not taught how to run a business and how to market ourselves. And that is something that I wish that much earlier on that I had learned. I really went through the school of hard knocks for years before I kind of, figured that out and finally decided to get a business coach and really focus on that. And so that is a real thing. And so I actually have a mastermind for healers, mental health professionals, healers. I teach Reiki and things like that. And we talk about the business side of things, because most of us, we're just clueless, and that will make or break your business.
Mhm. Yeah, no, thank you. Those are good advice for sure. And we're glad to learn what we can, even though it was tough for you, but look at where you are now. So turned
It's,
out
it's all
good.
a part of the journey.
Yep, for sure. Can you also do work with yoga and dream analysis. So I'd love for you to talk about that. I feel like, people are very familiar with yoga, but
Mhm.
dream analysis probably not as much. So maybe explain that a little bit and how you use that.
Yeah. Now, as for yoga, I don't practice yoga anymore in terms of teaching it. I am trained in yoga. Really, I teach more meditation. And so that's something that I integrate. And like you said, most people, I hope at this point, know about meditation, although there are things that people don't know that I'm still
Yeah.
finding. But yeah, I do use a variety of different tools. Reiki is probably my main holistic tool that I use, and I teach Reiki. I have retreats where I teach other mental health professionals how to do Reiki and how to integrate it into their practice as well. Dream interpretation, I think, is something that, depending on where you learn, psychology, social work, whatever aspect of mental health that you're in, you may or may not get a touch of it. I did, but it was kind of about Freud and Jung and, that sort of thing, and not really much into that. Dreams are really very spiritual in nature. And so learning the language of dreams, as I say, like that spiritual language, a lot of times when we are learning something, we try to equate it from what we know.
Mm.
Right. And so we're only looking at it from our perspective, and we don't understand to look at a different perspective or a different language, so to speak. And so, like, for example, if I'm learning Spanish, right, and I say hello, I'm thinking hello, but in Spanish is hola. So you have to learn in Spanish what the same words or what the same things mean. And that's really what it is for dream interpretation. You have to learn what the symbols mean when you see something, what it means, because it's not the same thing as you think. It's not literal. So we look at dreams very literal, but it's not. It's a different language, and you have to learn that language.
Mm. So interesting. Yeah. Probably 4 times a year, I have the wackiest dreams. It's always people completely non-connected in my life, like my 3rd grade teacher,
Mhm.
my cousin, and then, a coworker. And you're like, why are they all together? It's so
And
crazy.
that may not even be important.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not even necessarily important. It's what's happening in the dream. And so even that, like, a lot of us, we don't even know what to look for in our dreams. We focus on the things that aren't even important because we don't know.
Yeah. Very interesting for sure. So you mentioned that you also lead retreats. You have a lot of things happening. It definitely
I
sounds
do.
like you. And
I
I just
do.
feel like you have that high energy that you love it all.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah,
I would be bored if I didn't.
yeah. So you're seeing clients and coaching
Mhm.
them up, and then you're running retreats for other mental health workers.
It's really anyone who's interested in Reiki. So some
Okay.
are, a lot of my students are mental health, have their own practices because they really want to infuse holistic wellness into their practice. They understand that a lot of clients are wanting that. They're understanding the significance of it. And so I've trained a lot of mental health professionals in Reiki so that that's something that they can integrate into their practices as well. So yeah, so I have right now Reiki retreats. I actually have a retreat coming up in Morocco in
Oh,
November. And so
wow.
I'll be learning Reiki 1 and 2. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's like if you're gonna do it, do it.
Right. So
And so
you
it's a
go,
way to
go
incorporate all these things that I'm talking about.
yeah. So you go international and these are like
Yes.
overnight, 3-day
Yeah. Oh
things.
yeah, this is a
Okay.
7-day retreat. Yeah.
7-day. Oh, wow. Awesome.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking you've been to a lot of cool places.
This will be the first sort of international one that I'm
Oh, okay.
doing. I'm looking at next year kind of what we're gonna do, maybe having, and again, because like you said, I do a lot. So managing my own energy, right? Managing my own self-care, looking at what I can conceptually do well. So do I want to have one local? Do I want to have one international every year? How do I want to do that? So those are things that I'm looking at. But yeah, this is international because I mean, let's go somewhere we all want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And I imagine some type of resort center that this
Yeah, this
takes
is
place.
actually at a Black women-owned wellness and healing retreat.
Oh,
Yes,
very
so
cool.
she's actually, an American woman, Black woman who moved there and created this amazing retreat center.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, I hope that goes well and you have a great time there. How many people are attending? Like hundreds, thousands?
Oh god, no,
Very
you can't
small.
train hundreds of thousands.
Oh, yeah, that does
Ret
sound like a lot.
Retreats are really me for now for me. You have some people that have retreats and they're like hundreds of people. That's not a retreat to me.
Yeah.
Retreats are supposed to be intimate. They're supposed to be small. People are supposed to be able to get one-on-one attention. That's the whole point of a retreat. That's a conference.
Yeah. Yes,
So
route
you
words.
have that many people.
Yeah. So it'll be very small.
It'll be small, and it's meant to be, especially when you're dealing with something like Reiki. You want it to be small because I'm personally training everybody, and I want to make sure that they leave knowing what they're doing.
Okay. So, and then so you have that going on, and then you have, of course, all the engagements, speaking online or in person, for businesses, churches, or wherever is needed. Am I missing any other part of your career right now, or is that the main
Oh yeah, I
focus?
mean my journal. I wrote
Oh,
a self-love guided journal this year called "Girl, Get Your Effing Life" because I
okay.
was like, it's 2024 and we got to stop playing small. We just have to stop talking about all the things that we want to change and do and not doing it. And so that's really started a whole self-love movement for women. Actually, let me show you this is the journal. So, "Girl, Get Your Effing Life."
Oh my
And
goodness.
then it's gonna be featured. I'm not even gonna say where, but it will be featured on TV soon. But
Oh,
I've launched, so I have brunches. So girl, get your effing life brunches. So I have one back in May. I'm having another one in October. And it's phenomenal here in the DC area. And it was really about, really soul food, sisterhood, and self-love. Like just connecting, having an experience with each other, growing, like you're getting some education. We're talking about some important things, but also having fun. Because I think as adults we forget to play. Everything is just so, we're talking about business. It's just so business oriented. It's so serious. All these things that you have to do. And we forget to have fun and we forget to play and we forget to do the things that we enjoy in life that make it meaningful.
mhm, mhm. That's so fun. We did have someone a few episodes back who was also doing special brunches. They would do a lot of group therapy and things like that. And then once a year, all the people that she had worked with, they would actually fly in for this special, just like 1-day brunch thing as like a
Yeah.
whole thing. So I'm sure you would love it as well, the way they were doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. A lot of exciting things that you have going on. Is there anything else you feel like our listeners would want to know about that you're doing, or did we cover all of it?
I'm like, "Is that everything?" I mean, TV, there's always TV, but,
Oh, well, what do you mean about TV? Are you on TV?
um, I have been on TV and I will be again, but I cannot make that announcement, but
Oh,
yes, and
okay.
and that's been a joy. That's something that I definitely want to do more of. I think, when you're a true healer at heart, you want to help as many people as you can. And I love my one-on-one work. I love that deep-rooted healing work, but I also love when I can speak to the masses because that's really important because there's a lot of people that I'll never personally work with.
Yeah.
And so if there's a way that I can speak to them and help them, TV is an amazing way to do that. And so is speaking, of course, but TV is definitely a phenomenal way to do that.
Mhm. Oh, that is very exciting. I love all the cool things that you're doing and all the energy you have towards it, and your passion for helping people is amazing. So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you so much for giving us your time today, Ava Laura.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we wish you the best on this retreat coming up and the also
Yeah.
exciting ventures that we couldn't quite talk about. And congrats on your writing and all the work that you're doing. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed today. Please feel free to look up Avalaura Gaither and find out more about all the work that she's doing. Leave us comments and posts on social media. I'm signing off for today. Have a wonderful day.